Hello and welcome to the Innovation Women Speak webinar series. My name is Bobby Carlton. I'm the founder of Innovation Women. Innovation Women is a visibility bureau for entrepreneurial, technical, and professional women. Our mission is to eliminate the all-male, all-pale, and often all-stale panels you see so often at industry conferences and events. We connect women with speaking opportunities, and we connect event managers with awesome speakers who just happen to be women. Innovation Women is not like a traditional speakers bureau. Event managers can search the database for free at any time. It's self-service, and speakers pay just $100 a year to become a member. They get a profile on the platform, access to lists of speaking opportunities, as well as a number of other cool benefits. We recently rolled out a number of new features. Speakers can see how often their profile is visited. They can notify us to promote their speaking engagements, and event managers can easily create and store lists of speakers on the platform as they build out their events. If you'd like more information on Innovation Women, check out our website. For our webinar attendees, we have a special offer of 20% off your first year. Use the code IW webinar, all capital letters. It's basically like coffee money. You probably spent more visiting Starbucks back when we could all visit Starbucks and go inside, but I digress. Before we move on, let's look at what's coming up on our webinar schedule. So our webinar series this year has a new theme every month. July's theme is independent retailers. All of our webinar speakers are Innovation Women members. If you're interested in applying to be one of our webinar speakers, we post the call for speakers on our own platform. The deadline to apply for the next batch of webinars is June 8th. If you're already a member, keep an eye out for these opportunities on the site and in your weekly newsletter. I'd also like to encourage people to sign up and register for our next webinar. On June 10th, Tali Hassanov will be presenting 7 tips to pivot your marketing. You'll learn important steps to increase your digital presence, ways to generate and nurture leads digitally, and suggested tools to use. Most of them have a free plan. You can register for this webinar in the Attachments tab. And speaking of the Attachments tab, this is an annotated version of your screen. Below the video viewing window, there are tabs. The default tab is to ask a question. You can type in a question or a comment at any point during the program. The Attachments or Links tab is where you'll see documents and links from today's speaker and the link to sign up for our next webinar. You can download the attachments at any time during the live webinar or from the recording. The tab called Rate This helps us determine what you like. We read all the feedback. The polls or vote tab is where you'll see polls from our speaker. She'll ask you a question and you can answer it right in the screen. You can also enlarge your screen to view it in full screen mode. If at any time you need audio help, you don't hear the speaker or there's an echo, feel free to click on the help button at the bottom of the screen. Today's webinar is being recorded, so if you'd like to view the webinar again, you will be able to. We'll send you the link after the webinar. So now on to today's presentation. With us today is Desiree Cocroft. Desiree is the co-founder of Signature Dance Company, a nonprofit focused on building up women and girls, both in dance and their personal lives. Her community and culture work with the Signature Dance Company brought her the Community Build Her Award from the Pow Her Network, love these names, in 2017, and the Milwaukee Business Journal's 40 Under 40 in 2018. Desiree currently serves as board treasurer for Signature Dance Company while working full-time with Franklin Covey as a coach and consultant and building her personal business, Destination Life LLC. And don't forget, folks, you can add questions to the chat at any time. We're very excited to have you joining us today. I will turn things over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be working with you all today. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I hope you all are here and ready to get positive, to build that resilience that we need in this time of our lives, both professionally and personally. So before we jump into it, I want you to do a poll for me. So we're going to throw a poll out there just to get a sense of where you all are as it relates to positive thinking currently. So take a look at the poll that should be shooting up for you and, answer it. It has been a struggle for me to stay positive since COVID-19 on a consistent basis. So let's answer that, and that'll help me get a sense of what is in the room. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to do that. All right, got some answers popping in. Need a few more. All right, got some more in there. Got room for a couple of more votes. Hope you can see the poll. All right, I want to get a couple more responses, and then we'll move on, hoping that what we see will actually scale to what is actually out here. All right. All right, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Go ahead and stop the voting. All right, so I see, there's a lot of people in that kinda. Thank you for those that were able to, go ahead and answer that poll. And then almost about 30%, 23% that are in that, yes, that's me, I'm on the struggle bus. But then we have, quite a few people that are like, no, but we want some more tools. So all of you have come to the right place, because if you are on the struggle bus and really need some things to help you stay positive, you'll definitely get that here. And if you're in the middle spot, you'll definitely get some more of what you need. And then obviously if you've been doing well, which is great, hopefully you'll get a chance to see some tools that maybe you haven't used yet that you can use for yourself, for your family, things that can help you personally and professionally. So I wanted to just start off with what we're going to cover today, and that is some barriers that really affect our ability to be resilient if we let them overtake us. And then we'll talk a little bit about some positive thinking strategies to combat those factors. And lastly, we'll talk about 3 simple activities that you can do right away to increase your positivity and optimism on a daily basis. And because I'm such a giver, it's not really 3 activities. It's like 3 sections of activities. So you'll actually get way more than what is said right here. So for that reason, I encourage you to take notes. Yes, if you have a pen and a pad, feel free to take notes, because we'll talk about a few things that will help you use it in your personal and professional life. So I want you to capture it all. All right. So I want you to take some time and go ahead and type in the chat where it says questions for the audience. What does resilience mean to you? I want to hear from you. What does resilience mean to you? Let me give you a couple seconds to do that. What does resilience mean to you? All right. So just wanted to get a sense of what people were thinking. Yes, that ability to deal with change and uncertainty, definitely. That bouncing back, absolutely. Yeah, to get back up and start fighting even when things don't feel like there's any point in doing it. Absolutely. Love all of this. Ability to deal with change and uncertainty, definitely. Yes, I'm loving all of this. Your belief that you can overcome obstacles and continue even though you might struggle, definitely. To keep standing through adversity, definitely. Love all of these answers, absolutely. And this is definitely right up the alley of what resilience is. Because resilience is defined as the process of adapting well in the face of trauma and tragedy, threats, or other significant sources of stress. So things are going to happen, right? I know we all can attest to things do happen right now in our current state of living. And so this is really about how do we adapt well, regardless of the trauma, the tragedy, the things that we're facing, and some of us may be facing more than others. But regardless of the amount that we're facing, we are all facing something. So how are we adapting well, and how can we build this resilience to adapt well? Because the nice thing about resilience is that it can be built. It can be built. There is good news that this is a skill set that we can all learn. And some of us may learn it faster than others because maybe some of us are perhaps more wired to be on that positive side. So it helps us do that a little differently. And there are a lot of factors in terms of building resilience that we'll talk about. But the one that we're going to focus on today is really building that positive thinking. That is one way that we can build that skill set is, helping our mindset lean on things that will be more on the positive emotion side. So although that resilience can be built, the fact of the matter is sometimes life makes it really hard to believe that it's possible. With the things that are going on in the world like COVID, it can be really hard to think that, to build something to adapt in this time is really hard. Can it be possible? And that really helps me kind of go into some of the factors that make it really hard for us to believe that being resilient or making it through hard times are possible. And one of those things are we tend to worry about the things that we don't have. And I'm sure we can all relate, right? You see this picture of someone with an empty wallet, and maybe he was thinking about going to the grocery store, and it's like, well, gee, I don't have any dollars. So sometimes we worry about the things that we don't have, and it really holds us back of thinking about what is possible, all right? What is possible? So that's one thing that can hold us back if we allow it to, from building resilience and tapping into positive thinking. Another factor is we tend to focus on the worst case scenario. I'm sure I'm not the only one when it comes to what's happening in the world, but I have thought over and over sometimes to the point of being stuck about what could be the worst thing that could happen in this time. And obviously, sometimes thinking about worst case scenarios can help us, right? It helps us to adapt and develop plans of action to really help us not experience those worst case scenarios in some ways. And then in other ways, thinking about the worst case scenario all the time can really keep us from truly living in a way that is helping us be solution-minded and moving forward in the things that we still want to pursue because we're afraid of something that may never happen, but our mind is so focused on it. And then this last factor is we may constantly wonder why. Why is this happening? Wait, but why is this happening? And why is not a bad question. Why allows us to be curious. However, in this instance, it can keep us asking why, hoping that things were not what they are, and the fact is they are what they are. And so in asking why is this happening in a way of not necessarily curiosity, but in a way of wishing it never was here, isn't going to help us move forward. And that is the goal. We want to be able to be in this space, realize that this is a real space, and how can we move forward? How can we help our minds continue to do some of the things that we still wanted to do regardless of what's happening in the world? And so what do we get to do? We get to flood ourselves with positive emotions because positive emotions really allow us to flourish. And you see I have this 3-to-1 ratio on here because it's really necessary for us to have this 3-to-1 ratio of positive to negative emotions so that we can flourish. Because again, negative emotions are not bad. Negativity actually helps us become resilient because sometimes we learn, right? We learn from our fails. We learn from mistakes. We learn from things that happen that aren't necessarily our desire for it to happen, but they happen, right? It's when we do not have enough positive emotions to overtake some of the negativity that we can become really stuck in negativity overall. And the thing is, negative things are sticky, right? They're the things that tend to stick. I'm sure you can think about a time where you've gotten feedback, and the first thing you're thinking about is the feedback for improvement, the thing that wasn't super great on your evaluation, versus maybe the tens of thousands of positive things that people may have said about you. And so the same thing is with life. When we're experiencing, especially something like COVID or other things that may have come as a result of COVID, we may be focused really on those negative things. And so how can we help ourselves find some balance by giving ourselves more opportunities to experience positive emotion? Because positivity can be fleeting. You know, positivity is said to, I forgot who told me this, but enthusiasm has a half-life. You know, you get really excited about something, and then somewhere down the line it kind of fades away, which is why we need more of it. It doesn't tend to stick as much as negative emotions do. And so that's why we're going to talk about some ways that we can use positive thinking to really begin to flood ourselves with more of the positivity, because it looks like we'll never have to want with some of the negative things to help teach us a thing or two, right? So positive thinking strategy number one is to really speak out of our strengths and not out of our deficiencies. So basically speaking out of what we do possess, what we do have, rather than our weaknesses and what we don't have. And we tend to think in terms of what we don't have, you know, like the picture with the man with nothing in his wallet, right? But can we speak out of what we do have? Maybe I'm innovative. Maybe I know how to make $1 out of 15 cents, so to speak, right? How can I think about the things that I am good at, that come naturally to me, or things that are that I'm resourceful about, things that are in my space, and use that to set me on fire around the things that I can see possible in my life. And so I want us to look at some of these activities that we can actually do. And so I'm sure a lot of you are very aware of the power of writing and the power of journaling. You know, when we actually handwrite things, it sends off messages to our brain, and it really helps us hone in on the thing that we're actually looking to complete in our writing, or we're meditating on, and all of that, or reflecting on. And so I really encourage people to actually write with their hands. You know, if you want to type, that's fine, but there's so much power in physically writing. And so these are some really great writing prompts that you can use to coach yourself in your strengths. If you're feeling like you're in a time where your strengths are being challenged, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a leader in your organization, you may feel very challenged right now. So these are some of the prompts that you could use. So describing a time when you've overcome. So really digging into a time that you have handled a major challenge in your life. You know, at this point, we've all have overcome something in our life, some major challenge. And then you get a chance to think about, well, what did I learn about myself during that time? What were some of the strengths that I used during that time or that season? And then how might I apply that strength right now? How can I apply that in my life right now? And so the combination of these 4 questions really can help you hone in on things that you may not have even discovered about yourself, because we didn't take the time to reflect on how we really came out of a situation and what we used to get through it. Another thing that we can do is actually list our accomplishments. And I love this activity. I do this with my clients because a lot of times we don't think about what are the great things that we have already done, right? And this can help really well, especially if you're thinking about pivoting in your career and all of that. This is a great activity that you can do to really help you if you need to think about transferable skills and all of that. I really encourage people to not just list professional or work-related accomplishments, but also list those personal accomplishments, those volunteer work accomplishments, to really give yourself this holistic picture of your true value, so that you can have that on paper and use that, because it is all your story and it all makes you who you are. And I actually have a really good friend that she talks about how you should also write down your failures and how you've overcome it. And I think you'll be able to get some of that down in that first writing prompt, but I wanted to mention that. And then as a bonus, if any of you are positive psychology nerds like myself, then you would like to tap into that via character strengths assessment. That is free 99, ladies and gents, free 99. I have the link in the attachments and links that are available to you. It is free. You can sign up for it, and it's a great assessment to really start thinking about what your character strengths are. And so if you're having a hard time with maybe the writing prompts or coming up with some of those accomplishments, you know, that via character strength assessment is a really great way to kind of see some of your character, soft skill type of strengths and how you can pull on those to help you succeed in your personal life and in your professional life. So these are some great activities when it comes to looking into your own personal strengths and really digging in there so that you can start seeing those things and articulating those things rather than articulating what is not available to you, which is counterproductive. All right, so this positive thinking strategy number 2 is let gratefulness be your guide. I totally love gratefulness. I use it so much with my clients, and I also use it a lot with my work at Franklin Covey because gratefulness really helps you reframe your experiences in a positive way, and it helps you to have a perspective that you probably wouldn't have otherwise about a given situation, right? And so I want to give you an example of that. So for me, I actually had 2 deaths in my family not 2 years ago, last year. One was my grandmother. She turned 90 years old. Yay. She was 90 years old, and unfortunately she did pass away, and that was a sad moment. But what was even, I would say, tragic was that I had a cousin 2 weeks later that died in a car accident, and she was 40 years old. And so that one actually hit me a lot harder than my grandmother because I think when people have come to a certain age, it's almost we are expecting it, and we kind of knew it was coming at some point, and we were just really grateful for her long life. But to have had experienced a cousin that died at 40 where people believe that this is the beginning of your life hit me a lot harder. And so I had to look for some positive thinking strategies to help me in that season, and gratefulness was the thing. And I know it's weird to think of tragedy or to think of loss sometimes and think of gratefulness, but some of you that may have had experience with loss would know that being grateful for the time that you actually had with a person, or being grateful for the time that you were able to spend with that person that actually helped your life move forward, and just leaning into that is what really helped me, you know, get through that time really well and think about my cousin and my grandmother in more fonder ways than the way that their life actually ended. And so one of the activities that I have for gratefulness that I love to do, and I would recommend it for you all, is how to show up differently. And so given those same experiences, so let's say today, number 1, I would journal about the gratefulness I have around my grandmother and my cousin. So I might talk about them and what I'm grateful for concerning them, and then why. Like, why the heck am I even grateful for it, right? And like I said, I'm grateful because of the time that I had to spend with them and being able to be poured into and the fond memories that I have with them. So the second question is the game changer in my mind. The second question is, answer this question, how do I want to show up differently now? And so when I think about my relationship with my grandmother and my cousin, and I actually did this activity, so I'm not just telling you, I did the work. When I did this activity, I'm like, you know what, I want to show up in other people's lives the way they showed up for me. How can I be that friend? How can I be that relative? How can I be that employer or employee that shows up in a way that truly builds relationships and truly pours into people? And so I have this anchor of gratefulness that streamed from something that was very personal to me. So when I decide that that's how I want to move forward, I have an anchor to help me move forward in that. And so I would truly encourage you to do that even in this time. You know, what are you grateful for right now? Is there something concerning your job? Maybe you're glad because, you know what, you're still, you know, able to collect a paycheck during this time when many people are unemployed. You know, maybe it's, hey, I still do have family. Even if I've lost some during this time, I still have family. You know, what are you grateful for, and how are you going to show up differently? What are you going to do differently? How are you going to move differently because of those things? So hope that that was helpful, and that's an area of life that you want to bring up because that helps change our way of thinking. Our focus is different when we start thinking about gratefulness, because it's a great way to really reframe our thoughts in a way that help us have a more positive experience in things, even when it is a negative connotation associated with it. So this positive thinking strategy number 3 is counter unhelpful thinking. None of us have unhelpful thinking, right? We are just smooth moving all day, every day, and we're probably not. So counter unhelpful thinking, how can we combat this? And this is like the number one thing, right? We have thoughts that flood our minds all the time. We have millions of thoughts, right? And the hard part is, how do we filter them? How do we think about what's actually going to be productive, or how do we tackle the ones that aren't? And so that is the number 3 thing, is to counter this unhelpful thinking. And so I have a couple of things that I think will be really great here. I love using this with my clients. So this activity about what if, right? Because again, remember, one of those factors that comes to keep us from truly building positive thinking or resilience is that worst case scenario situation, right? It comes to haunt us, and that can be counterproductive. So think about that worst case scenario, like what truly is the worst thing that can happen in maybe whatever area that is kind of haunting you right now. And so number 2 is really answer the question, what would I do if that happened, right? What would I do? You know, and you'll be surprised at the answers that you come up with. Like, and don't just let it be that one-off answer. Like, let yourself kind of like throw your inhibitions to the wind and write exhaustive thoughts about what would you do if it happened. And then ask, well, what is the best thing that could happen? Because, you know, remember, this is this worst case scenario. This is us drowning in what could totally happen the worst way, right? So how can we write down, well, what's the best thing? Have we even considered what is the best thing that can happen? How many times do we actually ask ourselves that? What is the best thing? And then what's one thing I can do to get closer to that? And when I say that, I mean, how can I get closer to the best thing? You know, we circle so much about the worst case scenario. Have we really played out what the best thing could be? And how can I take personal responsibility in seeing that best thing come forth and happen? Because even though there are things, obviously, that are out of our control, right? We're not oblivious. We know that there are some things we can't do anything about. But what if we had something that we could do about what we actually want to see happen? How could I get closer to the best thing by doing the one thing that could help me get closer? And so I want you to think about that and use the what if activity, and you can use it in so many ways, like as you have thoughts that come about that are worst case scenario-ish, you can use this activity and these questions to help you filter through and hopefully come out on the other side with answers that will help you really move forward on what the best case scenario is. And it will show you so much about how we know how to figure things out when things come our way. So another activity that I also enjoy when it comes to thinking how we can counter some of those negative thoughts is the lie, the truth, and the proof. And so what I like about this is it helps you think about the thought that's coming to your head. And I like to refer to it as the lie. Some people might think those are strong words, but feel free to change the words to make sense for you. So I say name the thought. What is the thing that is kind of like coming at you? And so if it's my financial troubles seem like they will never end. And a lot of times I like to view the thought, the lie, as something that is spoken in absolutes. Because typically when we speak in absolutes, we're going too far on the end of this is never or this always, and neither are true, right? So that's why I feel like you can call it a lie. So my financial troubles seem like they will never end, right? So number 2 would be name what will happen. It's like I will get back on my feet, right? My financial troubles won't last forever, right? That is the truth. Right, and then you can name a past success. So that's the proof. And so if you did the activity in the beginning where we talked about listing all of your accomplishments or the things that you have done well, that makes it really easy to kind of grab something with the proof, right? And so there was a time in my life where I had a lot of financial troubles outside of COVID. Obviously, there are people that are having it now, but I had mine in 2009 during another recession, right? So I had a lot of troubles then, and it did feel like it would never end. But the truth is, I did get back on my feet. And the proof was, in times past when I had trouble, I figured it out. I found a way to make it work. And so that was my way of knowing, like, hey, I can get out of this because I've gotten out of other things before and made it work. And so the same is true for you. Now, if you're saying, hey, Des, some people call me Des, and you can call me Des too. Hey, Des, I don't really know if there's anything that I can see in my personal life that would say that I have this past success of getting through something like this. And you know what? That's okay. Because if you didn't, someone else did. And so I encourage people to pull from other stories, because if it was possible for someone else, it is also possible for you. Anything that has been done can be done, right? That's so profound. Anything that can be done can be done. And so if it didn't happen for you personally, pull from someone else's story. Maybe you know someone in your life that has been able to get back on their feet. So, hey, you know, you could say, well, Mary got back on her feet after the last recession, or I know someone that just got a new job during this time. So if it's not your proof, it can be someone else's proof. You just need proof to know that the lie, the thought, is not real. The lie and the thought is just there to haunt us, and that it's not all the way possible for anything absolute to be looked at as total truth. All right? So this is a great activity. I love using this, and I think that if you are really haunted with thoughts that are keeping you from moving forward, this is a great activity that you can do on a regular basis to kind of keep you going as you get limiting beliefs coming your way. And it's something that you can use with your family, your friends, and all of that, because I'm sure you know people in your life that are dealing with some of the same thoughts that are coming to keep them from moving forward. All right? So I want you to get back in the chat. Get back in the chat. And after you saw some of these activities, right, speaking out of our strengths and the activities that come along with that, and countering our thoughts that are negative, or if we're thinking about the letting gratefulness be our guide, you know, what area are you thinking you're prompted to, you know, focus on? Or what activity do you feel like would really be helpful to you right now? Give me some feedback so I can know, like, what area, what activity really speaks to you and you would want to see yourself actually do moving forward.
Hey, Des, this is Bobby. And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
While everybody else is writing in the chat, I'm going to tell you that I love the whole power of journaling thing. So, but
Yay!
I have to admit, I have a question to ask you on that. It's like, you talked about handwriting and stuff, and I have to admit, I'm a computer girl and typing. Is there really that much difference in holding the pen?
You know, it is just from a training that I had that talked about synapses go off in our brain, right? So synapses go off in our brain when we actually write journaling questions and such. And it has a lot to do with the way that when our body moves, you know, our body is really connected to our thoughts more than we would probably like to admit. And so in the training that I had it was called Power Communication some years ago, it really encouraged me to work with clients that actually have them write things out. So typing doesn't hurt you. You'll remember it. It's going through your eyes, but there's something about it. It's in your eyes and it's in your hands, and that's sending messages to your brain. So I know that's so nerdy of me, but that's why.
That's okay. Looks like we've got some other folks with cool thoughts, too.
Yes. So, yeah, the questions are thought-provoking. Yes, that lie, the truth, and the proof. Focusing more on gratefulness and looking at my strengths. Definitely, definitely. I'm glad the lie, the truth, and the proof are helpful. A lot of people find it to be helpful. Very cool. So, you know, I want to see if there's any other questions out there, because those are the activities and those are the factors, and that kind of brings me to a close for the official part of the webinar. So this is the time to really, you know, chat a little bit.
Absolutely, and it looks like we've actually got a couple of questions already from the audience. Okay. And I'm going to pick this one first because, you know, it speaks to me. how can positive thinking help entrepreneurs in times like these, i.e. COVID-19?
Yeah, I love that question. And so positive thinking really helps us become more solution-minded. So as an entrepreneur, you heard in my intro that I have a dance company, and I'm a co-founder of that, and so we've been becoming very innovative during COVID, and so we've been doing some of those activities, mostly like the what if, right? Because the worst case scenario is that we'll have to close our dance studio doors. And so then we went down to, okay, well, what's the best case scenario, right? That we can be really lean right now, and we can use the power of the people that actually volunteer with us, and we can use the power of donations. And so we actually started a program where we're doing virtual classes online to bring in donations. And it's been really fruitful for us and really helping us really sustain ourselves. So I know solution-mindedness comes with, taking ourselves through these processes of helping us think about what actually could be better. And it helps us show up in a way more proactive way. We're getting in front of things rather than letting things kind of sink us. And then it helps us clear out, all of the noise that doesn't really matter, because we get so much noise.
Gotcha. And we actually have a clarifying question here about writing. Someone was asking you about the word you said. Was it synopsis that you said? That affects the brain when you're writing?
Yeah, thank you. Synaptic. Yeah, synaptic. So S-Y-N-A-P-I-T-C. S-Y-N-A-P-T-I-C, synaptic. Yep, and those are just nerve cells that are in our brain. So it was said in this training that I did some time ago that when we use writing, it helps those synaptic really go off in our brain, and it helps us really anchor those thoughts.
Great. All right, we have another question here. What other things contribute to building resilience outside of positive thinking?
Awesome. Great question. So one of the things is obviously, obvious, right? Like good support, it's a good support system. So having a good support system in your life really helps you build resilience outside of positive thinking. And so having that strong family, strong friends, even if you're not able to physically be around them, but have a really great communication system to keep that support system around you, as well as maintaining those relationships. So the funny thing is, you can have a good support system, but during this time, if we're not maintaining those positive relationships, then it's also obviously not really going to help us. And so I think that that's where the positive thinking kind of comes in, because another good way to help us with resilience is having a good self-image. And so having a good self-image of ourselves, these activities, especially the one on strengths, could really help us build that good self-image. And typically when people feel good about themselves and have a good self-image, they're more focused on maintaining relationships, if that makes sense. Typically when we don't feel good about ourselves, we're not really good to our relationships, and so therefore maintaining them won't really be sustainable. So we can do work around our self-image and the way that we think about ourselves and all of that. We're more likely to maintain positive relationships in this time, and as a result, keeping that good support system around us.
Okay, and we have another question here. Someone's looking for some additional activities that one could do to help build resilience.
Yes, love it. So one of them actually has to do with that building relationships. So I think that something that you can do to help with with doing the work to help build resilience is building some of the relationships around you. And so I actually have people do this interesting activity, because when building your relationships, sometimes we have the wrong relationships in our lives in the wrong spaces, right? And so I encourage my clients to take a survey of those in their life that are really helping to bring light or bring positivity in their life, and those that may not. And that doesn't mean that I don't encourage people to cut people off, obviously, unless it's abusive, for instance. But, to really compartmentalize if this person is really a part of their support system. And so thinking about the people in my life and which ones are really the ones I know I can lean on in this time, And then also thinking about how am I giving into those relationships as well, so that there can be a balance, because we all can't just suck people dry. We want to have meaningful relationships. We have to do both. We have to give and we get to get. But I've also, there's so many interesting things about relationships, but the other part is that, no one owes us anything in terms of how people should be doing things for us during this time, because everyone globally is experiencing this traumatic experience as it relates to how COVID has impacted them. So no one really owes us anything. So really taking that out of our head and really just using that survey to just help us know what are the people that we know we can lean on if we need to during this time. Another activity I like to do is taking the time to pause and think about what went well. So similar to gratefulness, but another way to kind of go around it is thinking about anything that's happened in your job or in your place of work, or while you're homeschooling and working with the kiddos, which can be a bit of a task for most of us, is what went well. How can I reflect on what went well more so than what went wrong today or what didn't go right? So with each task that comes along, think about how you can take a moment to pause and what went well and actually celebrate the what went well. Even if it's a small thing, how can we celebrate that and make that be something that we make bigger than what we make the other things?
Okay, we have some other questions here. What is your thought about vision boards using the power of positivity?
Ooh, thank you. I love vision boards. So I really love how it gives you a visual, obviously, right? And I'm kinesthetic and visual. So for those that are kinesthetic and visual learners, it's a great way for you to be able to move and do things, put things together, and have it visually there. And it gives you an anchor. So that's where it helps you with this power of positivity. It gives you an anchor. In my house, I have not only vision type of boards in different places, but I have vision statements. I put affirmations on the wall. I put all kinds of things there as reminders. So vision boards would bring that same way of anchoring your thoughts, anchoring that positivity around you. So absolutely, if vision boards are your thing, I would totally do that to help you anchor in on this power of positivity in your life and helping you remember, obviously, the vision, right? Because the more that we can hone in on what we actually want for our lives and keep that in front of us, it is something that's intrinsically motivating, and it keeps us really grounded in what we actually want to see happen. So definitely, if you use vision boards, I think that that's a great way to kind of hone in on that power of positivity. Great question.
All right, our next question is, I tell people to think carefully about the people in their life circle. Fill your circle with people who build you up and limit your contact with people who tear you down. Thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, we want to make sure that we have people in our lives that build us up, and we want to spend more of our time with them than not. And I love the limiting, right? We don't have to cut people off, but how can we limit our contact with people who tear us down? I would also say, like, another way to think about it is how can we not only limit our contact, but our conversation, and limit the way that our conversation kind of happens. I told this to a friend of mine, like I have, people in my life, and sometimes they can take a road to, negative street, and that's just the way they think. That's how they are. That doesn't mean they can't change. That's where they are. So it's really my problem and not theirs, right? And sometimes we project our own issues on other people, which is not fair. It's like, hey, they're totally fine feeling like that. Until they want to change, that is totally their decision to make. But what we can do is decide, like, hey, I'm going to make sure I only have this much time when I'm talking to this person, and that's what I do, so that I'm not inundated with it. And then other times I'm like, okay, let me compartmentalize how I'm talking to them and not take what they're doing with me. So I've just learned to emotionally detach myself from the way that a person that is going in a direction that's not helpful to me, taking that out, taking myself out of the equation. And that's hard for some people, and it does take a while to kind of learn where that makes sense. And then the other thing that I've done with these people, or this person in particular, is that actually kind of accepting that this is how they are and not taking it in a way that I'm not using this conversation to build me up. Like, this is not even the point of it. The point of it is me staying in relationship with them and appreciating them for who they are and not really looking at them to be that person that's going to pour into me. And that's okay if I'm okay with that.
Great. I'm going to add another question here. I mean, and this one speaks to me because as a mom, we want the best for our kids. Are there suggestions that you have for helping building up the resilience of our children?
Absolutely. So you can definitely use some of these activities. I think gratefulness is a big one for kids, helping them see the gratefulness in their everyday. Obviously, we do a lot with the kiddos with, some of the politeness things that we teach kids at a young age, like, please and thank you and may I and all of that. In this time, they may not all, depending on their age, realize what's actually happening in the world. So finding ways to give them the outlet to have that conversation and seeing what's happening with them in their thinking. Even asking them like, hey, how do you feel with missing school right now? Like, how do you feel, with missing some of your friends? And just get a sense, giving them that space, right, to actually talk about it. Because just like we're experiencing this, they are totally experiencing some, level of loss when they had all this time every week to see their friends, to see their teachers, and now, they're at home, not just being with people that they love, but not people that they expected to also be their teachers, right? So how can we give them space to actually have those conversations? So I think having, conversations about what's really happening and finding out how they're feeling about it and giving them, different ways to do it. I think drawing is really good for especially the young kiddos. Drawing how they're feeling about what's going on, or drawing what they're happy about, or drawing what they're sad about, because that will help, allow us to have the conversation. And the building the resilience is a part of them having that support system. You, as the parent, you are that support system that's helping them and giving them the space to talk. And so if you find that maybe they want to talk more to their friends or they miss their teachers, how can we do that in this virtual world, giving them, some virtual play dates or giving them opportunities to get that support system that now has kind of been stripped from them in their normal world of going to school and seeing their friends and all of that. But helping them think about not only just gratefulness, but letting them feel their feelings, and how can we, help foster a way to help them keep having that support system that was kind of taken away from them without notice.
Great. So we're drawing to kind of the end here. There's some more comments and stuff. But are there any additional, kind of last-minute tips and tricks that you want to leave us with? Or thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. So one of my biggest things is that this takes time, right? There's no microwave thing about positive thinking. It's something that's not, you can do all these activities today and be good for a little bit, but remember, enthusiasm has a half-life. So it's not going to last very long if we just do it once. These are things that over time and with consistency will help build that resilience and make some of these things more intuitive for you if positive thinking is not something that comes as easy for you. So I just want to encourage you to take one or two of these things, and maybe some things you might have seen in the comments that spoke to you, whatever resonated with you, take that and take your time and do it over time. And you'll begin to see the results in the way that you think and see the world more automatically than maybe you do right now.
Great. Thank you so much. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Des, for joining us. And basically, everybody at home, don't forget to leave us some feedback and also have a good, resilient day. Take care.